Durga Stef, great to be with you. How are you, for starters?
Hey guys, thank you so much for calling. I'm here at night, your guys there in the morning, so I'm pretty cool, just relaxing after putting to bed my girls.
It's good to see that you're awake.
Yeah, it's quite intense, as you know, but I'm really glad to be talking to you, and thank you, Stu, for putting this up in your podcast.
Yeah, for sure. It'll be great for our people over here in Australia and Joe's people in California and Hawaii to get to know you a little bit more, and maybe for your community to get to know us a little bit more as well. So for starters, it'd be really cool to get to know a little bit about how you came to get to know Ram Dass and dive into his teachings and his community, because that's how we met.
Yeah, right. Well, I was in California for a retreat with Soyal Rinpoche, and I was in a bookstore, and I just found Paths to God from Ram Dass, and I just started reading it and just fell in love with him. And then I put on a personal retreat with him, and it changed my life completely since then. I guess a lot of suffering had to come into my life, so I finally took the decision to go to the personal retreat. But when I met him, I just felt like home, you know, that feeling. So he's been changing my whole life, my practice, my yoga practice, the practice with my family. And yeah, it's been like 6 years now that I did that with him. So that's how I got to be with them. And how about you guys?
Well, I got into him when I was quite young, kind of in my peripheral awareness. Like I was going through a lot. I was feeling really fatigued. I thought I was healthy and fit, yet I kept getting fatigued and kind of depressed and just wasn't feeling good. And I kept seeing Be Here Now pop up, but I didn't read it. It wasn't quite registering yet. But then I just got to really a low point and finally dove into that. And when I did, I just couldn't get enough of his teachings. I was listening to his teachings from the 60s, the 70s, the 80s on repeat every day, constantly. And it was a huge part in me kind of seeing the blessings in that stage of confusion and fatigue and suffering. It really did help that. And then I just started getting deeper into my yoga practice and eventually seeked out just some counsel. I would do Skype sessions with him every now and then. And then I was doing one a few years ago now. And before the Skype session to Joe, I was like, should I ask him if he'll marry us? And Joe was like, yeah, like might as well just ask him. So we're having this Skype talk, and I asked him, and then he agreed, and yeah, we went to his house and he married Joe and I. And then that opened up the next movement of our devotion to both him and the community and Hawaii, and just that whole lineage just has just become deeper and deeper in our life. But that was the beginning of it. Yeah.
Yeah, I just want to jump in because Ram Dass was Stu's teacher long before he came into my life. And the first time I really came face to face with him was on one of those Skype sessions that Stu was having with Ram Dass. And I remember it so well. I just popped my head into screen where I could see him and he could see me. And we just locked eyes. And you know how he just does that beautiful just transmission of love, and I just started crying crying because just of the generosity of his love. So that was my first encounter with him, was over Skype. But it was just still really profound and very memorable. And it was that similar feeling of like, okay, here is a being that on paper I don't have a lot in contact with, but when I sit next to him, I feel completely at home.
Yeah, so we're really grateful to be connected with you as well. It feels like there's some really unique, deep connections in the Sangha. We have a beautiful connection with Benji and Heather Wertheimer, and we've collaborated with them, and it just feels this kind of web, this love energy that connects. The Ram Dass community is really a unique one and deep and beautiful. So yeah, really grateful that you're also bringing that into the Hatha yoga and the kind of you could say more popularized mainstream forms of yoga, in which it's a common notion that the more devotional bhakti aspects of yoga are separate, but they don't have to be. And I love that you're bringing that into your community, into your studio, and I look forward to really nourishing that relationship and seeing where it'll go. How are you finding it, that kind of current movement of bringing all the Ram Dass teachings and the bhakti into your yoga school?
Yeah, I'm actually so grateful as you guys, as you're coming from, the satsang has such a power when we're like bringing these teachings into our everyday lives, right? And for me, especially in the yoga, like talking about the yoga, the asanas, the postures, I think it's very important to see how we can come into that first stage of finding silence and quieting the mind, so we can actually go deep into the bhakti practices. So I love to be doing this with you guys, because even though we might have different styles on teaching like yoga asana, I think people will be able to grasp into the essence of our teachings, which is very connected to Ram Dass and to the Bhakti, and to finding, the heart and trying to integrate every teachings into our lives, because that's what's all about, right? I guess people are tired of doing postures after postures and just feeling that it's not enough, right? Yeah. And so we're looking to use what we're learning in the yoga classes and in the yoga studios to our husbands, our kids, our jobs, so for me that's a key. I was very depressed also. Even with the yoga studio, I already had the yoga studio before meeting Ram Dass, and I couldn't really see what was that going, and until I found him, and I could integrate what his teachings into the school and into my family. Mm-hmm. So how are you integrating the yoga in with his teachings? Like what the community of Mexico can expect in your classes?
You want to talk to that?
I think you definitely touched upon it, but for me, the way that he holds the light of bhakti is very accessible. Mm. I love how in his Sangha there's room for all faiths, all beliefs, and you don't have to, it's not one way or the highway, that saying. There are all paths lead to God. And I feel like being a part of his Sangha and sitting with his community, I've really got a taste of that. That that it's very accessible for anyone, for everyone. So I feel like that's that's way of being inclusive is needed in this particular climate in the world.
Yeah, I think, that accessibility, I really do think it is available for anyone, whether they're very physically able and they've got a high level of mastery over the poses, or they're in a wheelchair. I think Joe and I have kind of deepened our ability to speak to almost anyone in that spectrum, from someone quite unable to move much to someone quite masterful with asana. And I think that's just been a gradual refinement and deepening over the years of just paying attention to where people are at and listening to that, and just being intuitive rather than just having a set script, which I know the first teacher training I did when I was living in Canada, it was that. It was a set script, and I thought that was it. I thought that was yoga, just a set script of what you say, a set script of an order of asana. And then thankfully, before that had a background in personal training and fitness, so I had a bit more awareness of the body and different body types and all that. But what the teachers were getting taught was very rigid. And I know Joe's also got an experience from her Ashtanga days of just feeling a kind of, what would you say, like a rigidity of how the physical...
For sure. Yeah, there was
only one way to do the postures. There was only one way to stand. There was absolutely no room for any variation.
Yeah, so that's where we're at in terms of a really thorough yoga class, is that adaptability and being able to speak to where anyone is at that given moment, and just tuning into that. So, and then it, like you said, sets up the arena for the bhakti. Once the mind gets quiet and then the heart open, then we can dive into the deeper aspects of yoga, and then the physical aspect is really just a doorway into the deeper aspects of yoga. Even though we deeply appreciate the physical aspects, it's just a tiny percentile of what is possible.
Sure.
Yeah.
I completely agree with you guys.
Cool.
So why don't we tell people what to expect in our retreat in, every day, what could be like a day in our retreat.
Cool. Well, you're very familiar with Mexico. Do you want to get kind of vivid with your explanation of the experience?
No, I have been to Baja a few times. That's about it. But Baja, California is a very beautiful peninsula on the north of Mexico and just south of California, and it's very rugged. It's a rugged coastline, turquoise water, extremely beautiful. And the retreat setting, I'm really looking forward to checking out. It looks really, really serene and has, full gourmet health kitchen and yoga studio and everything like that. Is that right, Durga?
Yeah.
But in terms of
almost like, yeah.
Yeah, you go, Durga.
Well, just it's such like being in touch with the owner of the hotel. It just seems so like family-like, It's a small hotel. It's only going to be us in the hotel. It's very beautiful. The food is great. And it's, Mexico is very friendly with special needs. Like, it's amazing how friendly has been the owner and accessible. And I think it's going to be amazing. The place is very nice, is very well set up. And we got everything we need.
Cool. Yeah, and the family aspect, I really do appreciate that you're going to be bringing your family. We're going to be, of course, coming as a family unit. It naturally seems to be attracting families, bringing their kids. And we've definitely had past retreats where quite a few people have mentioned that they didn't even think it was possible to retreat with their kids and their family. And I really do appreciate providing that platform. I mean, I do think it's healthy to every now and then take a retreat without your family, without your kids, especially if you're just needing that time. I think that is healthy to kind of pull away and recharge. But also I see it equally beneficial to retreat with the family. I think we should include our kids and our partners in our spiritual work and in the yoga class, in the kirtan, in the meditation, whereas I think it is very common to separate it. Like, this is family life, this is business life, and then this is my yoga practice. But to include it all, I think it'll be really rich. And having kids there, from past experiences of having kids at a retreat, it just lightens everything up. I think we can take the yoga practice a little too seriously sometimes, and that's what I love about having the kids around. That's what I love about Ram Dass, of course, like he's taking these teachings to the absolute depth, yet he's just light and giggly, and it's just so simple and loving. And I think the elders remind us of that, but also the babies and the kids remind us of that as well. So I'm looking forward to that. The combination of silent meditation, nice open time for people to just explore the beach, explore Mexico, the vigorous yoga asana. I'm excited for them to explore the variations between my teachings, Joe's teachings, and yours. I think it'll be a really nice flavoring of people's experience. And then bringing in the devotional aspect, the kirtan and the contemplative side and sound healing and the cacao and the matcha ceremonies. And just it really does feel like a rich and all-encompassing immersion. I'm excited about it.
Yeah, so true. And about the children, I'm really, there's so many people asking about this, right? Because it's 7 days, and for some people, as you say, it's very, they don't think they're going to be able to actually do the retreat with their children. And I think since we're all taking our children, it's going to be a nice experience for the children of the community and for us to find families who are also aligned with us, right? Because it's not so easy to find that. So that's what also many of the families in Mexico are looking forward to connect with other families like them who are searching for, more conscious ways of parenting, of living. So I'm very excited about that. And many people are asking me about that.
Cool. Back to a kind of personal level, how are you finding you've got so many balls to juggle, so to speak, of business, management, family, being a mother, being a leader in the yoga community. How are you finding the balancing act of it all?
Oh, well, you know what? I think I do balance it with a lot of my own practice. Like, if I stop doing my practice, even with the baby now, we have almost the same age babies. Yeah. So they're very demanding of our time, and I have the 2 older girls. So for me, it's been very important to keep my own practice, even if it is, just finding some 20 minutes of silence and listening to mantra. Like, really, the balance has been about not letting go of my own practice, even with the family around. I think that's very important. And just taking it lightly, as you say, right? it's not so serious. So just trying to get out of the roles, I guess, as this is like one of the deepest teachings of Ram Dass, is to get out of the roles into the soul, right? Mm-hmm. So it's remembering all the time that I can, when I'm stressed and I'm feeling like something is not flowing, it's because I'm caught up in my roles. So it's like a wake-up call, right? It's like, I need to start breathing and finding that space in my heart where I can find another perspective of my life, and who's teaching me, what is this helping me, right, in the business. If something is not flowing right, and I can, how is it serving me, and how can I change the perspective to find that service and to find the practice and to find the opportunities of the practice in everything. I guess I'm gonna confess, you guys, that I always wanted to be like a monk. I wanted to, like, really. I don't know how I ended up with 3 children.
I must confess, I thought I was going down that route as well, and Joe changed that game. So I feel you on that confession.
Yeah. I always, and then Adrian, my husband, he always says like, yeah, you are the kind of girl that can be alone and can be retreats, but I'm with 3 children, and I think it's so important to see how we can find spirituality in the world, in material world, right? Because we think it's only in the mountains, and it's only when I'm alone in silence. And that's been the teaching, right? When the first time that I went to see Ram Dass, this was my first complaint, right? Like, Ram Dass, I can get enlightened in Mexico City. This is one of the biggest cities of the world, and the pollution, and I have two girls, and my husband works like in a very, in nothing spiritual. And I was like, no, I can't do it. And he's like, he looked into my eyes and he said, this is all in your mind. And I know it's like, yeah, it's in my mind, but it completely changed. It's like this complaint, it's in my mind. I can find enlightenment in everything I do in my life, especially with my family and in my business and with the pollution and in a big city. So that's been one of my, every time that I go with Ram Dass, I feel more, closer to my family. Mm-hmm. He's all the time pointing is through that I will find freedom and not pushing it. So
think you're in. That's beautiful. He often, and a lot of masters bring up the teaching of, you think you're enlightened, go hang out with your family. Or go hang out with your parents. But yeah, I hear you. I mean, a lot of these teachings have previously pointed us in the other direction of the non-attachment notion, and the quest for self is in solitude, in renouncing everything. And this, for a lot of people, is a new, even though it's not a new way. I mean, Christ was talking about the teachings of being in the world but not of the world. But it's challenging. It's way easier just to kind of go into solo meditation and connect with the more subtle realms and the divine realms when there's not as many distractions. But what a great challenge to be around a whole array of relationships and distractions and all that. I do love experimenting with, like, going deep in those retreat modes, like wherever it may be, with Ram Dass or with us or India or wherever it may be, and then diving into the big city, diving into Delhi or diving into Mexico City or somewhere where it's way more challenging, and then practicing to integrate or practicing to find the divine, find the love, find the quietness in the noise. And it could be a good opportunity for people that are coming all the way from Australia to retreat deep with us, and then maybe explore Mexico City and then come to some workshops at the studio, because your studio is in Mexico City, isn't it?
Yeah, that's right. I think that would be such a great idea because, it's such a perfect city for, finding that integration. And the studio is like a bubble. Oh, I see it like a bubble, right? So it's not away, like it's very center. It's in a very nice area, but very also popular area. So it's not away from the traffic and stuff, but it feels like a bubble to me. And I think that's why I open it. It's to find that space in the heart of the city, even with the traffic and even with the noise. And you can feel the community there, and there's so much space even. So it's actually a good reminder that we don't have to get out of the city to find those, places where we can still find satsang and quiet and, space. So, yeah.
I'm interested in hearing about how you came across the name Durga.
Oh, that's a good story. Well, it was my first personal retreat with Ramdas, and I was asking him about his name, right? I was like, well, what did you change your name? Why is so important, And he was telling me that he feels that Ramdas is the name of his soul. So when people call him Ramdas, it's like a wake-up call to go into the soul instead of the role, right? Because we're so used to hearing our names related to our, personalities. So for him, it's like, oh yeah, Ramdas. And also the meaning, for him is to the servant of God. So it will be a reminder of, okay, I'm a soul and I'm serving. And he was telling me about this, and suddenly he looks at me and he says, and you want a name? And I was like, well, maybe, like I didn't know if I wanted a name. But when he said it, was like, yeah, well, and he started to say many different names. He closed his eyes and he started to say first, I think the first name he said was the mother of Hanuman. What's her name? Well, he started to say many different Hindu names like Sita, and then he said like, no. And then he closed his eyes, he waited, and he said Durga. And he looked at me and started repeating the name with me. And I was like, Durga, Durga, Durga. He said, Durga, Durga. And it just stayed with me, his voice with the name, right? And that night, I finished that session with him, and I was in a little bit of a shock, right? Because my religion from my parents is Jewish. So for me, having a name from a Hindu, like all of this stuff is a little bit too crazy. And so I just stayed with the name in my mind. And that night, I was sleeping, and I went to this like yoga trance dance thing with a cooker of Ramdas. And when we came back, I was listening to the drums, to the music. And I started remembering the voice of Ramdas, like Durga, Durga. And something happened, like I started feeling this tingling sensation all over my body. And it ended up like in my heart, very intense. And I was just crying for about like an hour it was so deep and strong. So that's how that happened. And then the next day he said, don't tell your name to anyone. And I didn't, like for a year after I went back to him again, like 2 years, I didn't say my name to anyone. And then after 2 years, he said, now you can start using your name.
Wow.
And I just start. I think he was protecting me of many things, from my family. When I came back, if I was going to start naming myself Durga, it will be so much resistance for Adrian. And he was taking baby steps for that. And now I love the name Durga because obviously it reminds me of him and of my soul and of that moment where I felt in my heart, that I belonged there, that I was home.
And what relationship do you have with the deity of Durga?
Well, it's been quite a trip, right? Because as I told you guys, I'm not sure how much I wanted to be a monk, so I'm a mother, and Durga is the mother, right? And I don't feel so naturally my motherhood. It's kind of my work, right? My my sadhana. And so it's funny that he gave me the name of the mother where I wanted to be a warrior. That part I can understand. Like, yeah, I want to be the warrior Durga, but I don't think that I wanted to be the mother Durga. And so the combination in my mind is like, no, there's no way to be a warrior and the mother. But it's interesting, right? To find the warrior in the compassionate, in the feminine, right? So I think it suits me in that way. I've been trying to feel that, to feel the mother, to feel my feminine part, to connect with that, to know that we can actually be leaders and be strong as the feminine, as the mothers. And so it's a trip. It's a trip. Yeah.
That's beautiful. Thank you so much for sharing.
Yeah, and you have also a name, right?
We do. We actually have a really funny story. So it was at our wedding ceremony, and we didn't know if we wanted to keep our last names. And as we were coming together, we were thinking, should I take your name? Should you take my name? Or should we make up a name? Or, it was this really strange moment of like, who are we? What legacy do we want to carry forward to our kids? So we were unsure. So we asked Ram Dass about that, and he said, no, not going to change your last name. We'll just change the first names. So he forgot the name, didn't he? And then he asked Darcy.
Darcy Ma
whispered it into his ear. And so he said, yes, you are Hari and you are Lakshmi. And we were like, oh, how beautiful. Thank you so much. And we were just blown away. And then it was the first retreat, not long after that we went to the Ram Dass Spring Retreat. And it was really in that community that we were first using these names, because we hadn't really told anyone. And so we wrote the names on our name tag, Hari and Lakshmi. And one of the first people that we met, she looked and she said, oh, you're Hari and Lakshmi? There's another Hari and Lakshmi over here. And this other couple, who were beautiful, Hari and Lakshmi from Hanuman Gardens, he had just given them the same name like a month earlier. And we were laughing that, again, not to take it too seriously, because you think, oh, it's this spiritual name, and then, oh, but I gave it to them as well.
It was a great teaching, actually. Because we have a laugh at it with the other Hari and Lakshmi as well, and because they were kind of shattered, and we were kind of shattered in a weird way, in a funny way, just oh God, we were. It was a bit of an ego trip, to be honest. In retrospect, looking back, we got given our spiritual name. and then yeah, it was a great teaching. So we've kind of like, it's there in the kind of, not the background of our awareness, like it's there, and I feel like we identify it. Like I call Jo Lakshmi quite a bit, and often in like love letters and birthday cards and stuff like that, I'll refer to her as Lakshmi, and often, yeah, it's like that is your actual name, but it's, yeah, maybe we're not ready to bring it into just the forefront of our primary identity. Maybe it's in respect to our parents. I don't know, but we're not using it primarily. I kind of relate to how Sally Kempton. Do you know Sally Kempton, meditation teacher? She's a great teacher. Well, she went through years and years of being a Swami, and she had her Swami name, and then kind of came out to the next chapter of that sadhana and felt that she was more at home with the name she was given at birth. And so she kind of let her Swami name go, and it's kind of there as her prime identity, but she's feeling more compelled to be referred to as the name she was given at birth. So that's what I'm kind of feeling with that. Like I'm feeling...
Stuart?
I actually hate my name. No, I hate my name Stuart, and most people know that, mainly because, no, I've always hated it, but then it got amplified when I was living in Canada, and I was doing personal training and I was doing yoga teaching, and when the receptionist would call me up on the intercom, he had a really drawn out Canadian accent, and he'd call me out as Stuart to the front counter, Stuart to the front counter. And that took my despair of the name to another level. So I'm definitely not attached to my name Stuart, but I'm neither attached to the name Hari. My parents have had a lot of grief with my resentment to my name. So both Hari and Stuart have given me a lot of teachings to not identify with either of the names.
Yeah. It's funny, right? How the names got us to work, right? Because, and honestly, I mean, I like the deity Durga, but I also felt the Durga name it's very, very strong. Mm-hmm. Well, it's like Durga, because people were calling me Stef. And that feels much more friendly, right?
Yeah.
So one time, I don't know if you met Ramgiri, but it's a satsang teacher who already left his body. And I work a lot with him. And one time I was telling him, like, Ramgiri, I don't know if I like Durga, it feels so strong. And it was a big teaching to say, like, well, you want to be Steph or you want to be Durga, like... And is this side that we want to push away these things. And it's just so interesting how these things play in our lives, I guess.
Definitely. Yeah. Anything you want to touch upon?
So I guess people know that we are all doing a retreat together in Mexico in May, and the dates are...
I'll do that in the intro and outro.
Oh,
yeah.
Okay. I thought that's what you were talking about.
No, just anything else you want to pick apart or dive into?
I can't think of anything at the moment.
Okay, mama brain. Durga, it's been a delight chatting with you. Is there anything else you want to bring to the conversation?
No, just really invite people, because this is going to be great. I guess we're all doing it from the heart to get together and to bring people into the essence of the teachings of Ram Dass, of the heart, of the Bhakti. And we're all, trying to integrate this to our everyday lives. And I think people need that. We have so many examples of teachers who are monks or are living by themselves, but we don't have so many teachers who are dealing with babies and kids, and
That's true.
So I feel people are looking for those kinds of teachers in a way, so they can identify.
Yeah.
And I also confess to the community in Mexico that I also wanted to do this with you guys because of that reason. Because I see you're really integrating this to your family and to the way you want to live your life, and there's not so many people who are doing that. So I'm very grateful you guys are coming. You're bringing your family all the way from there. I'm really, really grateful. I'm very excited to meet you in depth, and for the community in Mexico to have the opportunity of have you guys there, because I think I love your work. I love your energy, and I'm just very happy to have you here in Mexico.
Likewise, Durga Stef. It really is an honor and a privilege and a joy to further deepen our relationship and the relationship with your family and our connection with Ram Dass and the community. I'm really excited to see who turns up. I'm always blown away at the groups that come together on retreat, and it's such a rich opportunity, and it's always so beautiful to see the different people that come together. And I agree with that. There aren't so many teachers offering the family piece. We've got so many master teachers before us that have been bringing beautiful wisdom, beautiful teachings, but the family piece, it feels like it's often left out in the teachings, in the sadhana, even though it is one of the most revered platforms for sadhana. But it's a challenging one. It's so easy to get caught up in the busyness and the kind of stress of it all, and to forget the practices. So it's going to be a rich, beautiful opportunity for us to go deep into the multifaceted, multidimensional, relational, bhakti, tantric, hatha cauldron of sadhana that we'll be diving into. It's going to be beautiful. And to do it in Mexico is a real treat. So thank you for suggesting it and inviting us. It's a real honor.
No, I'm so happy, you guys. Thank you for doing this podcast, and I hopefully people can hear it and find it attractive to come all the way to Mexico.
Yeah, and listeners, feel free to ask any questions or anything like that to gain a bit more clarity on the retreat. All are welcome, like I touched upon before. It really does not matter where one is at, sadhana-wise, physically-wise. It can be any level of experience. So listeners, feel free to reach out, have questions and all that, and we will answer accordingly. But super exciting. We can't wait to meet up with you, and we'll be seeing you really, really soon.
Yeah, how exciting. Thank you guys for everything.
Much love, Durga.
So good to talk to you.